Hey there, welcome back to the channel. They left, maybe without warning, maybe with excuses that didn't make sense. Maybe they blamed you, or worse, made you feel like you were too much to love or not enough to stay for. And now you're sitting in the wreckage of what used to be. A ghost town of memories, questions that don't have answers, and a silence that hurts more than their words ever did. It's okay if you're still waking up hoping this was just a bad dream. It's okay if part of you still wants them to text, not because you want them back, but because you want to matter. You want to know that all of it meant something, that you weren't the only one who felt it. I know what it's like to carry a heart that's still full while your hands are empty, to give your best and watch someone walk away like it was never enough, to ache with a kind of sadness that no one claps for, the kind that makes even the simplest moments feel heavy. But this video isn't about chasing them. It's not about pretending you're fine when you're not. It's not even about revenge or proving anything. It's about truth. The truth that your worth didn't leave with them. The truth that healing isn't loud, but it's powerful. The truth that you don't need their apology to begin again. You're not here to win them back. You're here to win yourself back. The version of you who used to smile without forcing it. The version who didn't have to ask to be chosen. The version who didn't feel like loving someone meant losing yourself. They may have walked away, but they didn't take the best parts of you with them. You're still here. You're still whole, even if you feel broken. And what comes next is not about pretending the pain didn't happen. It's about using it, learning from it, growing through it. Because healing is not forgetting, it's remembering who you were before they convinced you to doubt it. You don't make someone regret losing you by posting pictures or pretending to be happy. You do it by becoming someone who no longer looks for love where it was never safe. You do it by rebuilding, quietly, intentionally, fiercely, and one day when they look back, they'll see the version of you they couldn't hold. Not because you were too little, but because you were more than they were ever ready for. This is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of your return to yourself. Let's take the first step together. Number 1, accept that closure may never come. One of the hardest truths to sit with after heartbreak is this: the closure you crave might never arrive. You might never hear the words, "I'm sorry." You might never get the text that says, "I was wrong." And no matter how much it hurts, that's something you have to accept. Not because it's fair, but because holding on to hope for an apology keeps you chained to a moment that's already over. You deserve more than breadcrumbs of clarity from someone who didn't respect your heart when they had it. But the painful part, they may go on living their life without ever acknowledging the wreckage they left behind in yours. They may convince themselves it wasn't that serious, that you'll get over it, that they weren't responsible for the emotional cuts they made you carry. And the more you wait for them to right that wrong, the longer you stay in a story that no longer serves your healing. This is where the shift begins. When you stop searching for peace in someone else's remorse and start creating it within yourself. Because real closure doesn't come from their mouth. It comes from your decision to stop reopening wounds, waiting for words that might never come. It comes from choosing to walk forward even when the pain still echoes in your chest. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's what closure really is. A reclaiming of your power. A recognition that while they controlled how they left, you control what happens next. You get to decide what you carry forward and what you leave behind. You get to choose peace over poison, self-worth over shame, growth over grief. Stop trying to decode their silence. Stop thinking you'll heal faster if they just admit what they did. You don't need their permission to move on. You don't need their approval to feel whole again. The very fact that you showed up, loved deeply, and still stood back up after being left, that's proof enough of your strength. So instead of asking, why did they do this? Ask, what can I build now that they're gone? Turn the pain into purpose. Let the silence be your sanctuary. Write your next chapter so powerfully that one day, if they ever do come back looking for closure, they'll find a door that no longer opens. Their regret won't come from your tears. It'll come from your transformation. The day they realize you made peace without their apology. That's the moment they lose the privilege of your heart forever. You don't need their words. You need your own courage. And that courage, it's already waking up inside you. Number 2, stop trying to be understood by the person who misunderstood you. There's a specific kind of heartbreak that comes not from the goodbye, but from the feeling that you were never fully seen. You opened your heart, you spoke your truth. You showed up with every part of you, honest, raw, real, and somehow they still didn't get it. And so you go back through the memories, searching for the moment where it all slipped through your fingers. You wonder if you said too much or not enough. You wonder if they would have stayed had you just explained your heart a little more clearly. But here's the truth, no one tells you. The right person doesn't need translation. The right person won't need you to twist yourself into something smaller, softer, easier to digest. They won't make you feel like your emotions are too much or your love is too intense. They won't misunderstand your silence as indifference or your boundaries as rejection. They'll meet you where you are. And more than that, they'll be grateful for the depth you bring. The one who walked away didn't walk away because they didn't understand you. They walked away because they weren't ready to receive you. And no amount of over-explaining, overextending, or overthinking will change that, because a person who truly values you won't need to be convinced of your worth. As Maya Angelou once said, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. You showed them love, you showed them loyalty, you showed them your heart. And they walked. That's all you need to know. Now the healing begins when you stop arguing with reality. When you stop drafting the perfect message in your head that might finally make them understand what they lost. Because the truth is, they already know. Deep down, they felt it even then. They just weren't ready to rise to the level of love you were offering. And that's not your failure, it's theirs. Let your silence say what your words no longer need to. Let your absence echo louder than your presence ever did. Because when you stop showing up to explain yourself to someone who's not listening, that's when your power returns. That's when they start to feel the weight of everything they dismissed. They remember the way you made them feel safe, how your presence grounded them, how your love asked nothing but gave everything. And that remembering, it's what leads to regret. So stop trying to be understood by someone who couldn't even understand themselves. Your energy is sacred. Your time is sacred. Use both to build a life that reflects your truth, not one that chases after someone who didn't have the capacity to hold it. Because the moment you stop trying to fix what they broke, that's the moment you begin to heal. And healing, not convincing, is what will set you free. Number 3, rebuild the identity you lost in the relationship. After a breakup, there's a silence that doesn't just come from the absence of their voice. It comes from the absence of your own. You start to notice all the parts of yourself you handed away without even realizing it. The things you stopped doing, the dreams you quieted, the voice you softened. You look in the mirror and see someone you don't fully recognize, and the question hits you like a wave. Who am I now? It's a painful question, but it's also the beginning of your return. Because the truth is, real love never demands that you disappear inside it. Real love adds to you, not subtracts from you. And if you gave so much of yourself that you barely know who you are now, that's not a reflection of your weakness, it's a reflection of how deeply you cared. But now, it's time to redirect that care inward. It's time to find your way back to the parts of yourself that got lost while trying to hold on to something that was never meant to be one-sided. Start with what's been quiet inside you. The things you once loved before the relationship consumed your attention, the passions, the places, the people who made you feel alive. You don't need to make big, dramatic changes. You just need to move. Begin again. Wake up early just to listen to music that makes you feel something. Journal not to make sense of the pain, but to reconnect with your inner world. Go on walks without your phone and let the silence speak to you in a way their words never could. Slowly you'll start to feel it, a whisper of strength beneath the sorrow, a flicker of light in the middle of the loss. Seneca once said, "No man was ever wise by chance." And the same is true for healing. Wisdom doesn't fall into your lap. It's built in the quiet hours of choosing yourself again and again, even when it's hard. So every small step you take back to yourself is not just healing. It's growth. It's rebirth. The version of you that emerges from this will be different. Not because they changed you, but because you chose to rise after being broken. And that new version? That's the version that will walk into rooms with unshakable peace. The version that will no longer shrink for anyone. The version that no longer needs validation because you've already found it in your own reflection. And when they see that version of you, from a distance, in silence, it will shake them. Not because you became someone else to get revenge, but because you became fully yourself in the absence of their love. This is your becoming. Don't rush it. Just keep showing up for you. That's how the identity returns. That's how regret begins. In the shadow of your rising. Number 4, let your healing be louder than their silence. Healing quietly is one of the most radical things you can do after heartbreak, because we live in a world that rewards noise. We think closure comes from confrontation. We believe revenge comes from being seen. But the real transformation, the kind that reaches deep into your soul and changes the way you move through the world, doesn't need an audience. It doesn't come from performing your pain. It comes from honoring it in silence and choosing growth, even when no one is watching. You didn't post the cryptic quotes. You didn't try to bait them with stories that hinted at your sadness. You didn't message them just to remind them you still exist. You chose stillness. Not because you weren't hurting, but because you knew that healing had to come from within, that the answers you were looking for wouldn't come from someone else's validation, but from your own quiet decision to keep going. That's the part they never saw coming. They thought silence meant weakness. They thought your quiet meant you were breaking down behind the scenes. What they didn't understand is that silence, when chosen with intention, is strength in its purest form. It's what happens when you no longer need to be understood to feel whole. It's what happens when you stop trying to be heard by someone who was never truly listening. And as you've slowly started picking up the pieces, reshaping your routines, reconnecting with yourself, tending to the wounds they left behind, you've built something they can feel, even if they never see it. Because healing shifts your energy. It makes you move differently, think differently, speak differently. You begin to carry a calm they can't access anymore because they lost their place in your life the moment you stopped needing them to fix what they broke. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. You didn't mirror their coldness. You didn't return their silence with spite. You rose above it, and that's what makes the regret cut deeper. Not because you became vindictive, but because you became untouchable. Not in pride, but in peace." There's no louder echo than someone who used to need your presence now being haunted by your absence. Not because you vanished dramatically, but because you healed silently. While they were waiting for chaos, you gave them serenity. While they expected you to spiral, you stood still and chose yourself. And in that stillness, something powerful happened. You stopped trying to be seen by the one who left and started seeing yourself again. That's where the real healing lives. That's where regret begins to burn in the heart of the one who let you go. Keep healing. Keep choosing peace. You don't need to be loud to be unforgettable. Number 5. Remember what you deserve and don't settle again. The real heartbreak doesn't always come from the goodbye. It often comes from the quiet realization of how much of yourself you gave away just to feel loved. You didn't lose them overnight. You lost little pieces of yourself every time you accepted less than you deserved. Every time you silenced your needs to keep the peace. Every time you forgave what should have been a deal breaker. Not because you were weak, but because you loved deeply. You hoped they would change. You believed that if you loved them harder, they'd finally see your worth. But the truth is, someone who truly values you doesn't need to be convinced. They show up. They stay consistent. They don't treat your love like a convenience. So now, this is your turning point. Not to go backward, not to rewrite the past, but to set a new standard. Because when you finally step back from the relationship, with clear eyes and a healed heart, you start to see the truth you tried to avoid, that what you accepted was never love, it was survival. You were surviving the bare minimum. You were surviving the moments they disappeared when you needed them the most. You were surviving the constant doubt, the emotional confusion, the nights you lay awake wondering if you were enough. Seneca once said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." And this applies to the emotional time we spend waiting for people to become who we need them to be. When you settle, you waste your time, your light, and your spirit on someone who never had the capacity to receive you. And that's not just unfair, it's dangerous. Because it teaches you to believe that your worth is something you have to earn instead of something that already exists. But not anymore. From here on, you remember who you are. You stop making excuses for people's inability to love you right. You stop mistaking inconsistency for passion. You stop accepting confusion as a sign to hold on when it's really a sign to let go. You deserve clarity. You deserve consistency. You deserve someone who doesn't make you beg to be prioritized. And the most powerful thing you can do now isn't to wish they'd come back. It's to promise yourself that you'll never again shrink just to fit into someone else's small idea of love. That's when they'll feel it, the shift, the distance, the space where they used to live in your heart. That's when the regret sets in, because they'll realize you were the one who truly saw them, truly cared, and still chose to walk away when you remembered what you were worth. You're not here to settle, you're here to rise. And the future you're building now, the one rooted in self-respect and truth, is the one they'll never get to be part of again. Number 6. Find strength in solitude, not just survival. Solitude often feels like punishment after heartbreak, but it's actually your most powerful ally. When someone leaves, the silence they create can feel overwhelming. The noise of the relationship, the attention, the texts, even the arguments is suddenly gone, and you're left with nothing but yourself. But what if that's not a loss? What if that's the beginning? The truth is, solitude is not about being without someone. It's about finally being with yourself. It's about learning to sit with your thoughts, your emotions, your raw and unfiltered truth, without distraction or performance. You don't have to prove anything in this space. You just get to be. This is where transformation begins. Not in survival mode, not in rushing to fill the void, but in staying still long enough to hear what your soul has been trying to say. Maybe you were too busy loving someone else to notice how far you drifted from yourself. Maybe you forgot what it felt like to feel peace in your own company. Maybe you've never truly been alone, not like this. And it scares you. But don't run from it. Lean in. Let the quiet show you what chaos tried to hide. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." That's the power of solitude. It's not empty, it's not lonely, it's sacred, and it's yours. When you allow yourself to fully exist in your own space, you stop depending on others to validate your existence. You stop waiting for a text to feel worthy, or for someone's attention to feel alive. You begin to recognize your own voice, the one that was buried under the weight of trying to be enough for someone else. And here's the beautiful part. Once you become whole in your solitude, your standards change. You no longer tolerate half-loves and almost. You stop chasing people who can't meet you where you are because you finally realize you are not hard to love. They were just not capable of loving you fully. You stop seeking comfort in places that cost you your peace. And the loneliness, it doesn't disappear, but it transforms. It becomes a quiet strength, a stillness that grounds you, a confidence that radiates not from being chosen, but from choosing yourself. Solitude is not the end of the story. It's the training ground for the life you're meant to live next. It sharpens you, it softens you, it wakes you up, and the version of you that rises from this solitude, the version that no longer fears being alone, the version that knows their worth without needing it confirmed. That version is powerful beyond words. That version no longer begs for love. That version becomes love, grounded, whole, and unshakable. You didn't just survive, you met yourself. And in doing so, you became someone they'll never have access to again. Making someone regret losing you isn't about proving a point. It's about reaching a place where their absence no longer defines your worth. The power doesn't come from what you say to them, it comes from what you finally say to yourself. That you are enough, that you deserve peace, that healing is no longer something you're waiting for, it's something you're creating. Regret doesn't show up because you stayed broken. It shows up because you chose to rebuild. Quietly, deliberately, fully. You stopped needing them to validate your story and started writing one that was yours alone. And that's what they'll feel. Not your revenge, your release, your freedom, your steady glow in a life they no longer recognize. So, keep going. Keep showing up for yourself in the smallest ways. Keep choosing the path that brings you back to you. You're not chasing closure anymore. You're becoming it. You're not seeking answers. You're living the ones your heart already knew. That you were never too much. That you never asked for too much. You simply loved deeply. And now you're learning to love yourself the same way. And if this journey feels slow, if it hurts more than it heals some days, You're not failing. You're unfolding into someone wiser, braver, untouchable. Subscribe if this spoke to you. Let it be a quiet promise to yourself that you won't go back, that you're becoming whole, and this, right now, is your new beginning.